Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Morning, everybody. The sun is shining on us today. And it's going to be sunny all day. And we're all stuck in a tent. But we're stuck in a tent with someone special. That's Georgie, and I'm going to say a few words about Georgie. But before I do that, health and safety. If there is a fire, head for the exits. This is a bit like being an air stewardess here, really. And then make your way out of the gardens to it's called the cowshed. But just follow the person in front of you. But it's unlikely that that's going to happen, but just in case. Just another word about our sponsors. Our sponsors for this tent is Niwaki. And Niwaki have been creating exceptional Japanese garden tools for over 20 years. Here's a pair of lovely, well-used Niwakis. And the team are here. You can see them down on the field. And they'll be offering, in this tent in the afternoon, tool sharpening demos as well, which you might find interesting. Keep your tools sharp. So done the fire exits. The format for our little talk this morning, or George's demonstration, is 30 minutes, and then we'll have a 15-minute session which will give you an opportunity to ask questions. And so I'd just like to introduce Georgie. Many of you will know Georgie already. Georgie is a flower farmer, a florist, a teacher, and an author, and a big presence on social media too. From the Bruton and Wincanton area. She supplies flowers. She's grown to dress around 50 weddings and events per year. And the point of her business, which is common farm flowers, is to look after the invertebrates that the rest of the food chain can look after. There's quite a big discussion over these 3 days about sustainability. And in fact, if you come this afternoon, we'll be at it again later on. So she grows a wide variety of cut flowers and foliage in a sustainable environment. So there's a good habitat for the food chain, from the smallest larvae to anything really that lives. So I'd like you all please to put your hands together and welcome Georgie to the germination station.
Hello. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nigel. It's lovely to be here. Yes, so my name's Gerogie Newbery. I'm a flower farmer and florist, and my job today is to inspire and enable all of you to go out into your gardens and be a bit braver and a bit more confident cutting your gardens to make floristry. So I'm going to make a lovely big arrangement. I do a thing on social media sometimes called the 30-stem challenge, and I posit that at any time of year, including the grimmest February morning, you can walk into your garden and you have to go. You can't stand on your back doorstep and sort of look. You have to actually take your snips in your hand, and these really are my real Niwaki snips, which are really very worn, and take a vase of water or a bucket and walk around the garden, and you will, I guarantee it, be able to find 30 interesting stems with which to make something beautiful to look at on your kitchen table. Floristry, I believe, is not about rules, colorways. It's about allowing the material that you find outside to sing. You're just the facilitator. The stuff's good. I mean, look, it's good stuff, isn't it? All I did was put some seed in the ground and leave it. You know, it's really not difficult, but it is sometimes a little bit nerve-wracking to go and cut. So everybody, stick your hand in the air if you grow flowers in your garden. Very good, excellent, most of you. Stick your hand in the air if you go and cut flowers and make arrangements from your garden. Good number. Stick your hand in the air if you would like to know more about how to get your flowers to perform really well and last a bit longer. There's a really good number. Okay, well, hopefully those are the 3 questions I'm going to answer for you today, and I'm glad you're interested in what I've got to say. So, first of all, let's go cutting. I have these very nice, strong buckets, and the reason I love a strong bucket is it doesn't crack halfway around the garden. For a reasonable fee, these are made by a company called Oasis, who are doing much less trade on their floral foam than they used to, but still make really very good quality buckets. And I like these buckets. So if you're looking for a bucket, look for a bucket which is taller than it is wide, because then you can put heavy heads or tall stems in it, and they won't pull themselves out of the bucket. That's a really top tip. Keep your bucket clean. So if you go harvesting in your garden relatively often, you will find if you don't wash your bucket out, it soon has a kind of greasy, kind of manky feel to it. And that's a bacteria growing on the side of the inside of the buckets. It's been growing on the water, and that will really affect the vase life of your flowers. So keep your bucket clean. Just give it a bit of a wash up with your washing up liquid. Keep it clean, and it's fine. When you go cutting, take your bucket with some water in it with you to cut your flowers, and do it when you cannot feel the sun on the back of your head. If it's hot enough to feel the sun on the back of your head, wait until later. So the best time of day to cut your flowers is first thing in the morning, because, no giggling at the back, they are turgid. They have water right up to their necks, which means that they will last longer in the vase. In the night, the water grows up the stems through capillary action. Remember your biology O-level. And they have water right up into their necks. If you ever see that flowers are looking a bit floppy in the middle of the day, dahlias often look really kind of like they struggle in the heat. It's because the water is going back down those hollow stems and is far away. So it's not the ideal time to cut your flowers. So cut into water first thing in the morning or in the evening when it's cool. I really don't think you need to be too concerned about what you cut. I think you curate the bouquets you make and the arrangements you make when you plant your garden. So you've already done what you're going to do. You've done the designing when you planted the garden. And I think what we'll do now is we'll look a little bit at some colour and ways to make your floristry more interesting. And I'm a big fan of a thing that in France you would call it the joli laid, the pretty ugly, or the handsome rather than pretty. For example, here we have the glorious Physocarpus diablo. Look at that colour. There's nothing pretty about that colour, but it's really stylish and strong. I cut this yesterday morning, and when I'm going to make an arrangement with it, so I cut it, I got it straight into its bucket, it's had an overnight in water, and now I'm going to arrange with it. So I've snipped a bit more off the stem, so I'm refreshing the cellulose drinking cells, and then I'm snipping up the stem. It's a woody stem. So woody stems, I'll snip up them and just lay it in the vase. If you want vases which have real wow factor, this is a great vase because it's on a little foot. A footed vase lifts everything up. So the stems are never going to touch the table, and it means they will have a lightness look to them. So see if you can find a vase that's got a little foot. I will admit this one comes from Morrison's supermarket, so you don't have to spend a lot of money or go fancy. If I'm arranging, I will not really worry when I first put things into the vase where they're going. I don't worry about what they're going to look like. I tend to cut in 3s or 5s or 7s or 9s, because then I've got odd numbers. If you arrange in even numbers, you can easily end up with a sort of a square or a rectangle or a straight line. So if you've got odd numbers, you will end up with a circle shape, so it's a more generous look. Very important. You see these stems are going in clean. No foliage under the waterline, and this will keep the water cleaner for longer. The other thing you can do is have another vase. So when you buy a vase, buy 2, And then tomorrow, you can lift this up and put it in the clean vase, wash this one up, and your flowers will last longer in a clean vase with clean water, because you know when you've got lilies in a vase, they always make the water really manky really quickly. If you give the lilies clean water, they'll last for longer. And the water won't stink. That's just bacteria building up. So what I do when I'm making floristry is I'll start with my foliage. So I've got my Jolie Laird Physocarpus. And now, this is something you can easily find in your hedge at this time of year. I absolutely think it's fantastic. Wild cornus. And look at the berries. It's an absolute winner. And this is why it's worth going and looking at things closely. Because if you think of wild cornus, you think a green leaf, a hedge. It's boring. Go and look at it, and you'll see that the leaves have this lovely rusty edge, and that the white flowers that we had in the summer are becoming berries. And it's a really interesting something to look at. You could have simply one stem of this wild cornus in a tall, thin vase, and it's interesting to look at, and that's what you're always looking for, is interest. So we've got a bit of wild cornus in there, and then we carry on looking for interest. So this isn't strictly foliage, but I'm a huge fan of amaranthus. I think gardeners often are either celosia. I think flower farmers become either celosia fans or amaranth fans, and I'm an amaranth fan. How much fun is that? Sometimes people find that their amaranthus is enormous and too overwhelming, and they don't know what to do with it. So what I recommend with your amaranth is that you direct sow it late in about May, and sow it quite close together. Don't thin it out too much, because if you have slim stem, then you'll get slim-stemmed amaranth. So I haven't pinched, this is the first cut off this amaranth. We've had an incredibly dry summer, so it's quite short. I'm peering over you. Quite short. But also the heads are not so heavy that I can't use them. So for people who who think amaranthus is just too enormous, don't sow it in a tray, don't prick it out, don't plant it out with a foot between, because then you'll get enormous plants. Direct sow it and let it be a bit smaller. So we've got a bit of foliage in here, and I'm going to now add, I've got another piece of cornus. We're going to tuck this in. And every time it's a woody stem, I'm snipping up it. So what I've given myself is a base. There's no leaves in the water. I've given myself a base, but you can also see that as a sort of, the stems of the flowers are giving me a structure. So now as I add stems, they will hold them up and they won't fall sideways. So make yourself a nest of foliage as you start, and do not worry what it looks like. We've got 2 buckets full of material we're going to use here. So don't worry, don't think, oh, that looks rubbish, because we've hardly started. I'm now going to add some tall colour. And I love, it's been an amazing year for zinnias. Who's had a brilliant year for zinnias? They've just been a staggering year for zinnias. And they're very, very good for invertebrates because they have this lovely centre with lots and lots of pollen. So if you're a keen gardener for your pollinators as well as your cut flowers, cut your zinnias and they will keep flowering. And thank you very much, Nigel. Is my lovely assistant. I'll ask you to give you a twirl in a minute. Again, I'm just adding to my crisscross of stems in the vase, and then when I add stronger, more delicate things in the middle, they won't fall over. Sometimes people worry about when to cut zinnias, and you want to do it so that this is called the wiggle test. And when your zinnia is still attached to the plant, give it a wiggle, and if it's good and strong and doesn't wiggle too much, it won't flop in the vase. That's your time to cut zinnias. And you can cut them really hard. Cut them low into the plant, and they will keep shooting very happily. There's my third piece. I was looking for my third piece of cornice. We'll tuck you in quickly. And now we're just going to work through the things that we've got. These are amazing, again, amazing for pollinators. Achillea. Mine escapes all over the garden, and I have it growing wild in the long grass. So I start off with, I think this is a variety called summer berries. And you won't see this in the arrangement, but what it's doing is it's giving me a sort of understory of pink. And the same with the sedum I've got. It's an understory of pink, and it just stops you having empty space. So, and also, of course, sedum is an incredible flower for pollinators. They adore it all through the winter. And then you find, so long as you don't cut it back too early, you'll find a number of people hibernating in your sedum. And now we've got some room for some really delicate friends. Brilliant for pollinators. Grow cosmos in quantity, because the pollinators, all kinds of pollinators, absolutely love your cosmos. But it's incredibly useful as a cut flower. You can cut cosmos. People often worry about when to cut their cosmos. This is one of the Fizzy series. It'll be something like Fizzy Rose Pink or something like that. And you can see that they've all got side buds. So if you cut your cosmos when they're just in flower like this, when they go over in the vase, snip the flower that's gone over out, and the side buds will come out. So I'm just going to re-snip all of their stems. And you can have them, because I've made this nest of stems in the vase, I'm going to have them so that they're nice and tall. I'm not going to push them all the way down to the bottom. I'm going to give myself more height by leaning them into the mix, and you get this feeling of light and elegance. It's sort of balletic if you allow them to do that. So from now, you don't have to put all your stems down to the bottom of the vase. Keep them up now. You've got something to hold them up, so that can be your frame. And we're going to move on around. Don't forget, at this time of year, you've got lots and lots of really lovely seed heads. If you're quite untidy with your garden, then your seed heads will fill up with people overwintering in them. So I'll cut some for me and leave some for the invertebrates to overwinter in. This is a lovely wild carrot, which grows very happily in my garden. And you can see how, because I've made this structure, I can have this now standing quite tall. It doesn't fall over. It's being held up by the structure. Obviously, dahlias are, for this time of year, one would not be without a dahlia. You do not have to have masses of the same in your mix. This is another Jolie Laird dahlia. It's my all-time favourite. It's called Tartan. And she's just sings such a strong song. So we'll tuck her in. And I'm not going to push her down. I'm going to let her stand a bit tall so you can see her. And she's leaning on the cosmos just to have her head held up. Here's Blackjack. Total favourite. If you're growing for weddings or event flowers, dark dahlias tend not to sell so brilliantly. But if you're growing to sell at market or something, then dark dahlias will sell faster than any of the others because they don't photograph well. They look like black holes in a picture. So when brides and people thinking about their party look at the pictures, they can't imagine how brilliant this colour is in real life. So we'll tuck Blackjack in there. And he, again, now they're all being held up by each other. We've got another tartan. I've been quite relaxed about what I cut with my dahlias because you can see I've got quite a big vase full. Oh, it's just heaven. And I love the movement in the head. So you think dahlias are quite solid, but actually, towards the end of the season, because you've been cutting and cutting and cutting, the stems get slimmer and they get more delicate. Sorry, I can't see anybody because I'm too short. But it's the flowers you're interested in anyway, so that's fine. So we'll tuck you in here. This is another variety I really love. Sorry, I'm just going to give you a little dahlia pash. But this one is called Purple Pearl. And she quite often reverts. And you can see she's fallen over. She was lying on the ground like this yesterday. So I cut her because I don't want to waste her. But I'm going to use that action that she's given me. Don't think, oh, the stem isn't straight, it's not perfect. Use it. You're being given this lovely balletic work by the flowers that you've got in your garden. So use that angle. She's going to lean out of the vase because she's that shape anyway, because she was lying on the ground. And then we've got two more of her sisters. She quite often reverts, Purple Pearl, to a bright orange. And sometimes you find that half of her is purple and half is bright orange. If you're lifting them at the end of the season, then maybe, if you don't like I quite like the bright orange, but if you don't like the bright orange, you can not lift that one. Maybe put that one in the compost and keep the ones that have stayed the colour that you like, the original Purple Pearl. So back to the, sorry, I know I can feel I'm going over time. Back to the Jolie Lead story. One more Purple Pearl will pop you in. Go for ugly colours, because if you have ugly colours, you see things in comparison. If you have arrangements which are all pale pink and perfect, they're very bland. That's a really nice John Lewis duvet cover. No, lovely, nice, really nice. But to make something interesting, add something ugly. Now, this is a great friend of mine. This is the most boring penstemon in the world. She's called Garnet, and she's a really flat red in a garden. You see, look at this. Yeah, I don't like it. She's a flat red. She does nothing really. But if you put her in here with this mix of dark pinks and purples, what she does is she lifts them all and makes them all more interesting. By this stage, you have to slightly check that you're getting your stems into the water. And I love the fact you can cut at this time of the year. Look, I've got several stems coming off here, including seed heads, and it's just more interesting. Don't just think, oh, I need a perfect stem. Don't. Look for the interesting stem. It's like people. Don't look for the pretty one, look for the interesting one. It's the same with floristry, it's the same with material. It's true. I'm always more interested in interest than beauty. So just tuck them in, and they will lift what could otherwise be quite a gloomy mix. Do you see how that red is really singing through there? And now we can have a bit more contrast. And we could be really tasteful. This would be the tasteful option. A nice blue scabious. Very nice, very tasteful. Bit John Lewis. Not in a bad way, but a bit John Lewis. Instead, why don't we have orange roses? There is nothing in here that would say, I must have orange roses. But if you're cutting roses, again, this time of year, mine have had the best summer they've ever had. So snip your stems off again, snip up the stem to increase the cellulose drinking area. You see how this one, again, she was at a funny angle, and I cut out a top bit, but she's still a great shape. And when I tuck her into this arrangement, she's going to lean attractively. And you see what that orange does. Thank you very much, my nice helper. Thank you, Nigel. we're going to get you to give us a twirl. You need to be in a long dress give us a twirl. So we'll tuck this one in here. And you can, because we've got a really good strong nest of foliage and twigs in the middle, I can literally balance this rose in here. And so long as a tiny bit of it, the stem is in the water, it won't dry out. And then we've got them here. And there we've got a really kind of interesting, a bit of wow factor, plenty to look at arrangement of garden flowers. It is probably 30 stems. Has anyone counted? No. It's probably about 30 stems, and it's huge. I haven't worried about what it looks like as I made it, because I curated the mix when I planted the garden. And when you go out into your garden, allow whatever is looking at you to speak to you, because there will be more than this. So I really recommend that you go into the garden with an open mind and an empty bucket and a clean pair of snips, and allow the stuff to speak to you, and find yourself cutting orange. This rose is Judi Dench, by the way. Allow the material to speak to you, cut whatever you fancy. Don't worry about whether it matches or suits, it kind of fits any rules. Just cut and take it inside and have some fun making an arrangement. And then you and your garden will both have a lovely time. You will, I promise you, if you do this on a weekly basis, I challenge you for the rest of your life, you go and make one arrangement a week from your garden, you will have a much closer relationship with your garden, and you will get a huge amount more out of your garden. And the more you cut your cosmos, the more you will get more flowers, and the more the pollinators will love what you do for them. Thank you very much. Is that
wonderful, Georgie? I don't know about anybody else, but I've learned a lot today, and I've learned also how to be a very suitable assistant. We've got 15 minutes, so it's an opportunity for you to quiz Georgie with any particular questions. We have 2 roving mics, so we have a hand up over here. So should we start here? Testing.
Hi.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Hello, I have to do a lot of flower arranging in grave pots, so you're very restricted as to how many holes. It's usually about 15 or 20. Have you got any hints for that? Because sometimes I try and get 2 stems into a hole and that sort of thing, but it is restricting, and then very often it has to be flat up against the grave head.
I think with those, because they are quite difficult, those grave pots, aren't they? In some ways, I think it's a really good idea is to, so I always call it greening up. So give yourself a nice bunch of foliage, and if you can find foliage that, so you have because they're also quite short, aren't they? So you need this much stem, and then 3 or 4, a bifurcation in the foliage, so that foliage will then cover the pot a little bit. So maybe something like a variegated cornus or some cotinus. Look, you could have quite a short stem with 3 stems coming off it. That'll cover the pot up. Give yourself mostly greenery, and then I would say just 1 knockout rose or a knockout dahlia or just 1 knockout something, a knockout peony, would look better than trying to get, as you say, it's really hard to get all of those things into those holes. So green it up, 1 something amazing, 1 amazing piece of seed head or something. It's quite ikebana.
So what would you put right, because there's a hole right in the middle, what would you put in that one?
I would put the foliage in that one. Yeah, and then I'd have the rose tucked into the side, kind of in a balletic way. I hope that's helpful.
We have over here. Oh, shall we? Lindsay, yes. There's him.
Look. Just seeing if the mic works. I have lots of flowers in my garden. I love arranging. Not very good, but I never get long stems. They're always really short, so my vases are probably at least half that size. How do you get them to be lovely, long, straight stems?
Cut hard into your garden. Cut ruthlessly hard. And you think, but I'm cutting you feel as though you're cutting the side buds, don't you?
Yeah.
Cut the side buds, strip them off the stems, and you will get, so long as you leave, so for example, the zinnias, let's have a zinnia. I have pulled off 1, 2, and actually if I put this in a vase, 3 potential pairs of flowers there. So that's 6 I've lost by cutting that stem. But it will, I mean, obviously we're quite late in the season now, but so long as I leave 1 pair of leaves near the ground, it'll reshoot. Be ruthless. Be ruthless.
Ruthless. Over here? 2 over here?
Hi, I just want to ask about extending the life of the plants in the vase. This probably sounds a bit silly, but do you have any top tips? Because I presume you'd advise replacing the water on a daily basis.
And
then what do you just sort of scrunch up the arrangement? Or
literally.
Or do you rearrange it every day?
These vases are really not very expensive at dear old Morrison's. So treat yourself to 2 and run them through the dishwasher in between times. Fill up your new vase with water, and you can pick up your arrangement. I can then snip all the stems again to reopen the cellulose drinking cells, and then put them in the clean vase, and they will fall back to where they were. I mean, maybe you need to plump it up a little bit. But largely it'll be the same. And I think the other thing is to think about, if you're doing it for yourself, and the roses are very blown, cut them and enjoy them, and they'll drop. They're not going to last in a vase in the house any longer than they would have done outside. So if they're going to blow in the next day or 2, they'll blow in your kitchen as much as outside, but you'll have more.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Over here.
I think it's Sarah Raven she's put this thing about plunging them into your stems into boiling water. What do you think about that? And then I've got another follow-up.
Okay. Well, Sarah is Sarah sears everything, and I sear practically nothing. I sear nothing. I totally agree that if you find that material is floppy, searing is when you put 1 inch or 2 of boiling water in the bottom of a jug, not a plastic bucket, a glass or tin or earthenware pot. You put a couple of inches of boiling water and you cut into the boiling water, and you're cooking open the cellulose drinking cells so that they last longer. The Americans do it with cigarette lighters. They burn them. Obviously, be health and safety, be careful, don't burn yourselves. I find that the earlier in the morning you cut and the faster you get the material into the water, the less likely you are to need to sear. If you're cutting in the middle of the day and the sun's out, it's going to be quite warm out there. If I were walking around the garden with stems in my hand, not putting them in water and expecting them to live for a long time, I might then sear them. But I never do that.
And the other question was about the cosmos, taking the wilting cosmos off. Sorry. Would the same thing apply to dahlias?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And dahlias, cut your dahlias hard. I really cut them. Louise will agree with me, won't you? Cut your dahlias, again, as deep into the plant as you like, so long as you've got a pair of true leaves, and you'll see a tiny little bit of side shoot coming. Cut hard into your dahlias. We fed the dahlias twice this year. You could feed more. You would get more out of them if you fed them. You could feed them with a sort of seaweed solution or a tomato feed, anything quite high in potash regularly, and they will absolutely give you everything that you could possibly want. You're welcome.
Do you have any other one?
Any more questions? Yes.
One at the back.
Thank you. Hello. I've tried growing zinnias, but they rot.
Are you
the
overwatering
stems.
them?
I didn't think so, but it's possible. I never can get them to go at all.
So zinnias generally like it hot and dry. They really like hot, dry. So, but they don't want to dry out. So if you've got nice Somerset clay, actually they quite like it, but you want to put them in the most open, brightly sunny place in the garden and give them a bit of space. Don't have them too close together. So when you plant them out, give them 9 inches. I always say 9 inches is wider than your hand span. Obviously, all our hand spans are slightly different, but when you plant them out, give them a hand span, give them a bit of air, because they can get a bit rotty, and they can get really bad mildew. That's the other thing that people really struggle with. So give them air, put them in the heat, and good luck.
Do we have anyone else? One more here.
Yes. Sorry, you've got a microphone coming.
Sorry, I've got some peonies I'm growing for a wedding. They all came too early this year. I know we had a hot spring, but is there anything you could recommend to delay it? If I was to mulch them up more, would it take...
If you mulch them up, they will flower. You'll just get fewer flowers, and you want quantity. But what you can do... Is it next spring, the wedding?
It's June, early June.
Early June next year. Well, next spring won't be the same as this, so you'll probably have a massive peonies and you'll be fine. But no 2 years are ever even remotely the same, so it's by taking a punt. But if you find that they are budding up really early, the time to cut them is when they're at the marshmallow stage and they feel a little bit soft. And you can see them they will be like this in maybe 5 or 6 days. You'll see ants working the edge of the calyx. The ants will go around and they're sucking the sugar off the edge of the calyx, and that encourages the flower to open. As they open a little bit, you'll feel them soft. When they're at the soft stage, good luck with this, you cut them hard, and you put them in water overnight, somewhere really cold and really dark, and then you wrap them up in newspaper and you put them in a cold place, lying flat out of water until the day before you need them. Do not, under any circumstance, get them out 3 days before you need them and put them in water, because they'll go poof, they'll be done by the weekend.
So sorry, how many days can you leave them lying down in the paper?
Until the day before. So literally the day before the wedding, you go to the cupboard where you've put... I know, it's terrifying. You go to...
I do a few like that.
That was a relative term, obviously, but still.
I'm a bit worried.
You go to the cupboard where you've got your peonies wrapped in paper, just lying flat, out of water. You get them out. You snip that couple of inches off the stems. You put them in water, and they will pop.
Wow, okay.
But they won't last more than the wedding. They'll pop and go.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, thank you very much.
Good luck.
My goodness. That's a kind of question to end on, isn't it? You'll be on tenterhooks on the day before the wedding, I see.
Yes, let's see it all on your social media.
Right, well, thank you, Georgie. It's been fantastic to hear all of this. And I just say one or two other things about the rest of the day. If you haven't had enough of Georgie, and indeed enough of me, you might actually hear a bit more of me later on. We have a panel this afternoon in the Hive. I think it's at
3:15,
where we have a panel, and we'll be talking about sustainability, and we'll be talking a lot about flowers and stuff. The next one here is at 12 o'clock, and that is going to be fascinating. We have two professors, not one, two. And one's got a lovely French accent as well. And they're going to be talking about the science of pollination. So please come back at 12 o'clock and have another session.
And I'm on at the Hive again at 2, I think.
Yes.
Where I'm going to be talking about how you can make your cut flower garden really the most eco cut flower garden that there is. I've got loads of top tips.
And one other thing, just to mention your social media. If people need to see you on social media, because this is the big thing.
I think they're probably all here because of the social media.
Common Farm Flowers.
Yeah, Common Farm Flowers. It'd be nice to see you all there. Thanks very much for coming along.
Thank you,
everybody.
Georgie.
Thank you.